What do uncomfortable conversations have to do with money? Is the question I want to ask you, or ask of us to answer. So my name's Lloyd Ross, and this live is all about having uncomfortable conversations, okay? Because success, even in money, is all about having one uncomfortable conversation after the other. That's really all it boils down to. And I think about how I've built any success in my life, and it's having a really uncomfortable conversation with someone or with myself. Okay, the conversation can be with yourself as well, right? So what do I mean by that? And can I give you some examples? Well, when I look back, when I was in a job, okay, I've only ever been in a wage job for about 4 years of my life. It was just I was psychologically unemployable. It just doesn't suit me to be in a job. Okay, didn't like that my income was capped. Didn't have flexibility. Wasn't valued. You know, so many things, right? Anyway, so I had this conversation with myself that you're better than this. You can do more than this. You're limited here. That's the conversation I have with myself. It's uncomfortable because if you have it every day and you're not changing, you're beating yourself up. But then to change, I had an uncomfortable conversation with the senior supervisor, the boss. Okay. And the uncomfortable conversation was, I'm resigning. That was uncomfortable. It was like a breakup because it was a good company. So sitting in his chair in front of him saying, I'm leaving, was uncomfortable. Okay. But it got me out of work into selling. Okay. Then I had to have another uncomfortable conversation when I moved out of real estate into full-time online business. Okay. I came from a family business where I was building it with my dad. We built it for 7 years, rebuilt it for 7 years, been through ups and downs and all sorts of things. And I remember having an uncomfortable conversation with him downstairs saying, listen, I've got this thing that's been growing. It's going really well. I want to follow this, but it means I can't be here in this family business anymore. That was an incredibly difficult conversation, extremely uncomfortable conversation. That was more like a breakup because it's like, hey, I'm going to leave you in the trenches taking grenades. I'm going to go, like it was really hard. But that then it moved me into other things. Okay. So you're never going to get through success or get rich or get wealthy if you're not prepared to have the uncomfortable conversations. Okay. I was talking to one of my clients today in our 5 Steps to Millions program, and she was visibly upset. Okay. Because, and I asked her why, and she said, I've had a really uncomfortable conversation with myself. I was like, around what? She said, it's around the money mindsets. I said, what do you mean? She said, I realized that I have a delusional money mindset. Like I'm living in fantasy. And it was like, what? It was just this breakthrough moment for her. And it's because she was prepared to have an uncomfortable conversation with herself. And so sometimes it's the conversation in the mirror that counts the most. Okay. Another lady that is in our mentorship program, she's going through another very uncomfortable conversation with a partner. Okay. With a spouse. And that's an uncomfortable conversation because it's like, if things don't change, we're done. You know what I mean? Like it's really uncomfortable, but deep down, it's what's going to actually move the wealth ticket. It's going to move because what happens when you have those conversations is it frees you of the burden of it, because deep down inside in your heart, probably it's not your head, your heart and your head, that if this doesn't change, you can't grow. Okay, that's really what it boils down to. And if you can't grow, it means you can't increase your income, because you can only grow your income to the extent you grow yourself. If you can't increase your income, you're going to find it very hard to get wealthy. Okay, so having uncomfortable conversations is really what success boils down to. It's how I've done things. It's how you've probably had some level of success in your life. It'll boil down to that. If you're asking, if you're making sales, it's a uncomfortable conversation sometimes. If you're it comes up with your spouse when you're talking about money, I'm sure, but you've got to have the conversation. Okay. What I say is you've actually got to have the courage to disappoint others to live your dream life sometimes. Okay. The courage to disappoint someone else to get what you want. Now, it doesn't mean you have ill intentions toward them by disappointing them, but you've got to feel like you're letting him down. Okay. When I had that conversation with my dad, I felt like I was letting him down. But in reality, if I hadn't have had the conversation and followed my heart, that would have let him down. Okay. If I hadn't have had the conversation with my boss at work to resign, and he knew in my heart of hearts I didn't want to be there, he'd be disappointed. So what we think when we're having those uncomfortable conversations, we think we're disappointing people. But the reality is that they'd be more disappointed if we weren't true to ourselves and follow our heart and what we want to actually do in life. So my question to you is, what uncomfortable conversations are you avoiding? And I know you're probably thinking of them, right? I remember I had this decision to make. It was an uncomfortable conversation with myself. I had to walk away from my CFA charter after 5 years of studying finance to pursue our online business in a big way, to go and make, financial success. There's no amount of studying was going to do the work in a business scenario. So I had to have an uncomfortable conversation with myself to say, I've got to walk away from this 5-year degree in the final year. Like a brutal conversation. It was like a war in my head, right? But I was avoiding having the conversation with myself, and I was just delaying the inevitable. All of the conversations, once I knew I had to change, in my heart of hearts, I was like, oh God, I knew it was inevitable. The conversation was inevitable. And it doesn't matter how much you put it off, if you want to grow and you want to get wealthy, you've got to find the courage to have that uncomfortable conversation, okay? Because if it doesn't change, your wealth isn't going to change. Your bank account's not going to change. Nothing can change at that point. You're capped, right? So I want you to have the courage to have the uncomfortable conversation, okay? And I know when you do, you'll realize it's just all pent up stories that you tell yourself about what is going to happen and what will happen. And you'll probably find a lot of the time the conversation with the person is easy. They're understanding. If they're not, they probably don't love you or respect you. And then you can stop having the conversation with yourself, okay? But I do promise you that these uncomfortable conversations do lead you to greater success, okay? So if it's holding you back, then I'm really encouraging you to go have that uncomfortable conversation with that person, okay? Or the spouse or yourself, right? And, if you had that uncomfortable conversation with yourself and you unpack a few things and you skin away the onion layer and you ask, you delve deep inside, the place you least wish to look is in yourself, and you become self-aware of the money mindset you're carrying and your weaknesses and your vulnerabilities. It's daunting, okay? It's confronting, but it's also the first step to transformation, okay? Which is actually self-awareness. And once you're self-aware of what things need to be fixed, you can move forward. All right. So that's what I want to encourage you to do today. I want you to have an uncomfortable conversation with yourself that you're avoiding, okay? Because that is the key to wealth. If I think about things that lead to success, it's one uncomfortable conversation after another. All right. So I encourage you to do that. And of course, if you haven't grabbed our book, Money Buys Happiness, the new one, go grab it. That's how you get it. moneybuyshappinessbook.com, moneygrowsonTreesbook.com, and the first book that I wrote. And of course, if you want to book in, just talk to one of our coaches, 5stepstomillions.com, for our financial coaching experience for 12 months, which is super exciting. It's where all these breakthroughs come from, right? Because there's accountability, there's the right environment, there's encouragement, there's wins, there's knowledge, there's financial education, and it's all the thing. Yeah, and there's massive action, which massive action creates results. Okay, so if you're seeing the results people are having, breakthroughs, financial education, it's in that program, right? So that's how you go into that program, 5stepstomillions.com, and you can chat to one of our coaches. All right. So I hope that's been valuable for you about the conversation, what conversation you're avoiding, or what uncomfortable conversation have to do with money. It's all there for you. I hope that's been inspiring for you, or maybe it's been confronting. But either way, we all have to go through it. So you got this. Go have the uncomfortable conversation, and I'll see you on the next live.